political turmoil has intensified in Pakistan. Violent clashes continued in Islamabad. Thousands of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf supporters, the PTI supporters, this is Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister's party, led by senior leaders. They've defied a government crackdown to demand the release of their party founder, former Prime Minister Imran Khan. At least one policeman has been killed and dozens other injured as Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf protesters clashed with security forces whilst entering Islamabad. The protest, led by Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Chief Minister Ali Amin Gandapur and Imran Khan's wife Bushra Bibi, began from the militancy-hit KP province on Sunday. Despite barricades and Section 144 being imposed in several places, demonstrators removed the hurdles and the shipping containers and fought their way into the capital, vowing not to retreat until Imran Khan is released. A policeman was killed during a clash at the Hakla interchange, while several others were injured in violence across protest sites. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned the death, terming attack on law enforcement unacceptable. Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi has vowed strict action against protesters whom he labelled as miscreants. Meanwhile, you've got Bushra Bibi, the wife of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan, releasing a video message urging more supporters to join the movement, declaring this protest is not just about Imran Khan, but about the future of Pakistan altogether. The unrest comes as Islamabad hosts the Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko, with authorities emphasizing security concerns. However, the US State Department has called on Pakistan to respect human rights and allow peaceful protests. Of course, all of this happening even as Belarusian President Lukashenko, like you can see on your screens, is present and arrived in Pakistan for that crucial visit. And back in Rawalpindi's Adiala jail, senior PTI leaders met Imran Khan for a briefing on the protests. Imran Khan has been jailed since last year and facing over 200 cases, has accused the government of quote-unquote stealing the mandate through the controversial 26th Amendment and unfair arrests. And even as the clashes escalate, Islamabad and Rawalpindi have shut down schools and highways, leaving citizens stranded. Shortages of essentials like food and milk have been reported in Punjab, with people questioning the government's strategy.
हमारे लिए अभी भी रेंजर्स के पास कितना देर लगती है कि हम वहाँ पे 5 मिनट फायरिंग होनी है तो उसके बाद वहाँ बंदा नज़र नहीं आएगा, लेकिन हम लोग कह रहे हैं सब्र सब्र सब्र। इस टाइम हमारे लोग हैं वो पाकिस्तानी हैं, उनकी जानें ना जाएं, लेकिन एक लाइन आती है जहाँ पे हमें फ़ैसला करना पड़ता है कि उनको हमने अपने लोगों को भी प्रोटेक्ट करना है। उन्होंने कल की कॉल दी थी, आज दूसरा दिन है। जो यहाँ पहुँचेगा वो डेफिनेटली कोई सूरत नहीं है कि वो रेस्ट नहीं होगा। हम यहाँ पे आपको एक डिफरेंट स्ट्रेटजी के साथ नज़र आएंगे और डेफिनेटली अगर आते हैं तो ये नहीं हो सकता वो आएँ और हम उनको जाने दें, ये बड़ा क्लियर है।
Next, we turn our focus to the troubling rise in persecution of minorities in Bangladesh, a situation that has sparked outrage both locally and internationally. On the 25th of November, Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari, a prominent leader of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, in Bangladesh, was arrested at the Dhaka airport. Brahmachari Chinmoy Krishnadas was produced before the Chittagong court after being detained in Dhaka. The Chittagong Metropolitan Magistrate denied bail to Sri Chinmoy Krishnadas Prabhu. And meanwhile, India has expressed deep concern over the arrest and denial of the bail of the priest. In a statement, India's Ministry of External Affairs condemned the multiple attacks on Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh. India criticized the lack of action against perpetrators of these attacks, while a religious leader faces charges for peaceful demands. The MEA urged Bangladesh's interim government to ensure the safety of minorities and protect their freedom of assembly and expression. But earlier, ISKCON put up a post on platform X themselves, demanding the ISKCON leader's release. The post said, and I quote, "We have come across disturbing reports that Sri Chinmoy Krishnadas, one of the prominent leaders of ISKCON Bangladesh, has been detained by the Dhaka police. It is outrageous to make baseless allegations that ISKCON has anything to do with terrorism anywhere in the world." That particular statement on your screens for the viewers is perusal, but the ISKCON Incorporate also went on to say that we're urging the government of India to take immediate steps and speak to the government of Bangladesh and convey that we are a peace-loving Bhakti movement. We want the government of Bangladesh to release Chinmoy Krishnadas immediately. And the Ministry of External Affairs here back at home in India has also come down heavily on the Dhaka police's actions. Now, who is Chinmoy Das? His detention, of course, follows his involvement in leading a significant rally protesting the increasing hate attacks on the Hindu community. The ISKCON chief has been charged with sedition, is accused of hoisting a saffron flag over Bangladesh's national flag during the rally, an act that authorities over there claim undermines the nation's sovereignty. But this arrest, needless to say, is part of a broader pattern of repression against minority communities in Bangladesh. We have seen already those protests that you can see on your screens, with the police coming down heavily on these peaceful protests. The arrest has triggered widespread outrage. Protests erupted across major cities like Dhaka, Chittagong, Barisal and Khulna, with demonstrators demanding the ISKCON chief's immediate release. The situation in Bangladesh raises urgent questions about human rights, religious freedom and political accountability. And as the world watches the voices of persecuted minorities, they certainly can't go unheard. We'll continue to track these developments closely and bring you updates as they unfold. For now, quick reactions from major stakeholders.
रोज बांग्लादेश से बहुत ही बुरी खबर आती है। कल 3:20 के करीब मुझको फोन आया और जो चिन्मय कृष्ण दास के साथ में कोई एक जन थे, उन्होंने मेरे को बताया कि जब वो ढाका से चिटगांव के लिए फ्लाइट में बैठने के लिए एयरपोर्ट आए तो एयरपोर्ट के गेट में ही कुछ प्लेन क्लोथ लोग, मतलब सादे वस्त्र में कुछ लोग आए और उनको पकड़ लिया और पकड़ के गाड़ी में बैठाने लगे। तो जब पूछा गया कि भैया आप लोग कौन हैं, तो बताया कि हम डिटेक्टिव डिपार्टमेंट पुलिस से हैं और इनको हम लोग लेके जा रहे हैं, और उनको एक गाड़ी में बैठा के फिर वो लोग चले गए। तो ये बहुत ही चिंता का विषय है कि एक तरह तो हम देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह जो माइनॉरिटीज हैं, हिंदू माइनॉरिटीज हैं बांग्लादेश में, उनके ऊपर में लास्ट 100 दिनों से अधिक उनके ऊपर में अत्याचार हो रहा है, उनके ऊपर अटैक हो रहा है, उनकी औरतों को उठाया जा रहा है, बहुत सारे लोग मारे गए हैं, घर जलाए जा रहे हैं। और ऐसी परिस्थिति में हमने देखा कि चिन्मय कृष्ण दास एक पूरे माइनॉरिटीज मूवमेंट का वो फेस बन गए थे। और हमने ये भी देखा कि जो भी प्रोटेस्ट हुआ उनके अंडर में वो बहुत ही शांतिपूर्व ढंग से हो रहा था।
देखिए, बांग्लादेश में इस्कॉन के पुजारी की जो गिरफ्तारी हुई है वह पूरे सनातन पर हमला है, वो हिंदुत्व के खिलाफ साजिश है। हम इसको बर्दाश्त नहीं करेंगे। हम अपने देश के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री और गृह मंत्री से अपील करते हैं कि तत्काल पुजारी की गिरफ्तारी से वहां रिहाई कराई जाए और ऐसे ठोस कदम उठाए जाएं, क्योंकि विश्व में जिस प्रकार माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो सनातन धर्म की रक्षा की है और उसके लिए जो धर्म और स्थापना के कार्य किए हैं, उसी क्रम में यह गिरफ्तारी हमारे सनातन के लिए बहुत बड़ा हमला है और बहुत बड़ी साजिश है। इसको हम अपील यही करते हैं कि उसकी तत्काल रिहाई कराई जाए, अन्यथा ऐसा ना हो कि अब सनातन धर्म अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर आंदोलन भी करेगा। अगर ऐसे कार्य और ऐसे दुष्कर्म अगर कहीं भी सनातन के खिलाफ होंगे तो पूरा सनातन धर्म एक है और हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर आंदोलन भी करेंगे।
बांग्लादेश के अंदर जो हिंदुओं पर अत्याचार हो रहा है उसकी निंदा और भर्त्सना की जाती है। देश का पुजारी और देश का साधु संत इसकी निंदा करता है और हमारी देश की सरकार से मांग करते हैं कि उनकी सुरक्षा का पूरा ख्याल रखा जाए। जो बांग्लादेश के अंदर जो अत्याचार हो रहे हैं उसका सामना वहाँ के हिंदुओं को डट के करना चाहिए।
Well, now shifting our focus here, amid its ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Russia appears to be tapping into new fronts to strengthen its global positioning. Now, just on Monday, Sergei Shoigu, Secretary of Russia's Security Council, met with Taliban leaders in Kabul, signaling Moscow's interest in playing a pivotal role in Afghanistan's future. As per reports, Russia will provide weapons to Taliban. Russia will help in making the American weapons with the Taliban functional. Now, Shoigu, a former defense minister, led high-level talks with Afghan officials, including deputy prime ministers and key ministers. Shoigu also shifted the spotlight to the United States, urging Washington to shoulder the responsibility of rebuilding Afghanistan after 2 decades of military involvement. He called for frozen Afghanistan assets to be returned, saying the United States must take responsibility for Afghanistan's recovery and release funds that belong to its people. Taliban leaders, including Deputy Prime Minister Abdul Ghani Baradar, pressed Russia for assistance in easing the burden of US-imposed sanctions. And this diplomatic outreach aligns with Russia's pivot to Asia as it faces economic pressures of its own from Western sanctions over Ukraine conflict. Meanwhile, sources in Lebanon reveal that US President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron are expected to announce a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah in the coming hours. US and French officials confirmed significant progress in talks, with a senior Israeli source stating that Israel's cabinet will meet Tuesday to approve the deal. While talks show promise, Israeli airstrikes continue on Hezbollah-controlled areas in southern Beirut, and the Israeli government has not commented officially on the ceasefire details. White House National Security spokesperson Matthew Miller indicated that a resolution is close, but warned that nothing has been finalized yet.
What I'd say is we have made significant progress with getting towards a resolution. That includes progress from where we were when I spoke to this last week, but we're not done yet. Nothing is final until everything is final. We continue to work to try and get an agreement over the line, and we're hopeful we can get one, but we need both of the parties to get to yes.
Conflict, and there was a huge...
You should know that typically when we say we're close, we have the caveat that nothing is final until everything is final, and that it takes the parties actually saying yes and getting there. I think you've also heard the Secretary say that oftentimes the very last stages of an agreement are the most difficult because the hardest issues are left to the end. That, of course, is true. Hopefully we'll get there with an agreement. We're pushing as hard as we can to get a diplomatic resolution that would allow these tens of thousands of people in Lebanon and Israel to return home, but ultimately that's up to the parties, not to us. Look, we don't believe we have an agreement yet. We believe we're close to an agreement. We believe that we have narrowed the gap significantly, but there are still steps that we need to see taken, but we hope that we can get there.
Good morning. This weekend, Chabad Rabbi Tzvi Kogan's brutal kidnapping and murder in the UAE shocked and saddened the state of Israel. It was a monstrous act of terror that demands swift justice. Israel will use every tool at its disposal to ensure that those responsible, as well as their orchestrators, are brought to justice. None will escape. So we are moving forward on this front. As I said many times, our goal was very clear, which is to push Hezbollah north of the Litani River. We haven't finalized it, but we are moving forward. I assume that the cabinet will meet today or tomorrow to discuss it. And I think for us it's important what will happen after, that Hezbollah will not be allowed to come back to the fence, and we will do whatever is necessary to guarantee it. We learned the lessons from 2006.
Another proposed ceasefire would see an Israeli military withdrawal from southern Lebanon, with Lebanese army troops replacing Hezbollah forces along the border. The ceasefire, which would be monitored by a 5-country committee, is expected to bring an end to the fighting that intensified alongside the Israel-Hamas conflict in October. Despite these diplomatic steps, violence continues, with Israeli airstrikes and Hezbollah missile attacks escalating the situation over this weekend itself. As both sides await a final agreement, the humanitarian situation remains dire. Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump has announced a sweeping tariff plan targeting imports from Mexico, Canada and China, a move he says is aimed at combating illegal immigration and drug trafficking. The controversial proposal is already drawing sharp reactions from global markets, trade experts and the affected nations. Let's break it down for you guys. The plan laid out by Trump includes two main components. First, a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, which will apply to all products and is set to take effect on his first day in office, January 20th, 2025. According to Donald Trump, these tariffs will remain until Mexico and Canada take decisive actions to halt the flow of undocumented migrants and drugs, particularly fentanyl, into the United States. Secondly, a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, where Donald Trump has accused Beijing of failing to curb fentanyl smuggling and breaking promises to impose stricter penalties on the drug traffickers. The rationale behind these tariffs stems from what Donald Trump has described as an invasion of drugs and illegal immigrants into the United States. He argues that both Mexico and Canada have the resources to address these issues but have not taken sufficient action. Trump claims the measures are necessary to put American citizens and secure the nation's borders. Now, these tariffs are not without consequences, mind you. Economists warn of significant disruptions. Everyday goods imported from these countries will become more expensive, potentially driving up the inflation and squeezing household budgets. And as prices rise, disposable income may shrink, leading to decreased spending and slower economic growth. Industries dependent on cross-border trade or global supply chains could face disruptions resulting in layoffs. And Donald Trump's announcement has already sent shockwaves through global markets, with the Mexican peso and the Canadian dollar taking a massive hit. Meanwhile, Mexico's finance ministry has stressed its status as the United States' top trade partner, warning that these tariffs could destabilize the relationship built under the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. On the other hand, Canadian officials are equally alarmed, given that 75% of their exports go to the United States. The Canadian dollar has already weakened in response to the announcement, reflecting market fears of economic fallout. Analysts believe that these measures may violate the trade pact, leading to legal challenges and doubts about its future. Investors are bracing for further volatility as fears of a protracted trade dispute certainly grow. President-elect Donald Trump's tariff plan is a stark continuation of his America First agenda, aiming to address domestic concerns as well. Tariff concerns for Mexico, China, and, well, Canada.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on Monday pledged a 25% tariff on all products from Mexico and Canada from his first day in office. Trump said on social media the tariffs would remain in place until the two countries clamp down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing the border illegally. The threatened new tariff would appear to violate the terms of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement on Trade, which took effect in 2020 after Trump signed it into law. That deal continued the largely duty-free trade between the three countries. The president-elect also accused China of not taking strong enough action to stop the flow of illicit drugs crossing the border into the U.S. from Mexico. He said his government would impose an additional 10% tariff on goods from the country as a result. Trump has previously pledged to end China's most favored nation trading status and slap tariffs on Chinese imports in excess of 60%, much higher than those imposed during his first term. In response, the Chinese embassy in Washington said, quote, "No one will win a trade war or a tariff war." Mexico described the current trade deal as a, quote, "framework for certainty for investors," and there was no immediate comment from Canada. Economists say that Trump's overall tariff plans would push U.S. import duty rates back up to 1930s-era levels, stoke inflation, collapse U.S.-China trade, draw retaliation, and drastically reorder supply chains. They say tariffs are paid by the companies that import the products subject to the duties, and they either pass on the cost to consumers or accept lower profits. Trump frequently refers to countries paying as a consequence of his tariff plan, saying on Monday that Mexico and Canada will, quote, "pay a very big price." In 2023, the U.S. accounted for 75% or more of the two countries' exports.
Congress leader and the leader of opposition in the lower house of the parliament, Rahul Gandhi, while speaking at an event in Delhi celebrating the Constitution Day, said that the Constitution was a book of truth and non-violence. He also added that we promise to conduct a caste census on the lines of Telangana when the Congress government comes to power in the center.
पहली बार कास्ट सेंसस को तेलंगाना में जनता की एक्सरसाइज बना दिया गया है। जो सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं वो बंद कमरे में 10-15 लोग नहीं चुन रहे हैं, वो लाखों लोग, उसमें दलित, आदिवासी, पिछड़े वर्ग के लोग, गरीब जनरल कास्ट के लोग, माइनॉरिटी के लोग, सब लोग हैं। और तेलंगाना की जनता ने सेंसस डिजाइन किया है। ऐतिहासिक कदम है। और जो हम तेलंगाना में कर रहे हैं जहां भी हमारी सरकार आएगी, जिस स्टेट में, चाहे कर्नाटक हो, तेलंगाना हो, और आने वाले समय में जहां भी हमारी सरकार आएगी, हम उसी प्रकार से जाति जनगणना को करेंगे। आज मैं देखता हूं तो मैं कह सकता हूं कि जिस प्रकार से हमें दीवार को कमजोर करना था, हमने नहीं किया। यूपीए सरकार ने नहीं किया। जिस मजबूती से हमने करना था, हमने नहीं किया, मगर हम दीवार को तोड़ने की कोशिश करते थे। ये दीवार में सीमेंट डाल रहे हैं, कंक्रीट डाल रहे हैं, फाउंडेशन दे रहे हैं दीवार का। इसीलिए जाति जनगणना की जरूरत है।
Meanwhile, the BJP claimed that Rahul Gandhi in fact skipped greeting President Draupadi Murmu during her address to at the joint sitting of the parliament on the Constitution Day. And we've already seen BJP leader Amit Malviya attributed Rahul Gandhi's alleged behavior to arrogance. Sharing the purported video, he claimed that the Congress leader didn't greet the president, Draupadi Murmu, because she hails from the tribal community.